right, there we go. Hey guys, Ryan Hoffman here at Wholesale Capital Corporation, your direct mortgage lender, and I got a lot of requests to do closing costs and how to keep them low, and basically explaining what are closing costs so you can understand it and how to save as much money as possible. So what we'll do, I'm going to give you just a brief understanding of what they are, what parts are involved, and a couple little strategies and common mistakes when it comes to what's involved in avoiding them. So to start off with, when you hear things like no closing cost loans and stuff like that, there is always going to be some expenses incurred, and it's whether or not you see that you're paying them directly or whether the lender is paying them on the back end, but they're giving you a higher rate up front in order to compensate for it. No matter what, you're going to pay them somehow, and it's just whether you see them or whether it's going to be spread out over the course of your loan. And there are times when it is beneficial or not beneficial to do that, and we talk about when that makes sense. For example, if you're buying a house where you are only going to live there, this is your first house, you're only going to live there for 3 to 5 years, which is 90% of people who buy houses buy their first house, then in that case, it would make sense to build a no-cost loan or a loan where the closing costs are being credited back to you. Reason for that is because if you spread it out over with a higher interest rate, the money that you're spending on that higher rate is significantly less than the money that you are avoiding paying up front. It switches depending on how long you're planning on living there. That's called the return on investment. A good lender would be able to tell you when that break-even point is and when you're going to get a return on investment. Other things to consider, sometimes you might just consider going with a lower down payment loan as opposed to avoiding closing costs because there's times when it makes more sense and the numbers work out best for you. Remember, just because you hear no closing costs or no mortgage insurance or things like that doesn't mean that you're saving money. Sometimes you're actually spending more money because you just don't understand how everything works together. So it's important to be working with a loan officer who understands how everything fits together, how all the mechanics work, and has a heart in the posture to serve, as opposed to, all right, let me give you what you want, or let me give you what you're asking for and get a deal done and get a commission, even if it's not what's best for you. So that's why we do a lot of work with education and walking clients through what all this stuff means, so that way you are more up to speed and you know that you're getting a good deal because you understand this versus that. So anywho, something to keep in mind, you sometimes doing, for example, instead of doing a 10% down conventional, maybe it makes sense to do FHA so you have less money out of pocket and you can use that extra money to buy a lower interest rate, and then in some situations that makes more sense. Or 5% conventional versus 3.5% FHA. Sometimes there's a sweet spot there. It is very unique to your situation. So we'll leave it at that. Your interest rate. Now, if you sometimes have closing costs, you can also get a higher interest rate to credit that money back. So for example, a 4% rate versus a 4.375 may give you 2% back, 2 points in credit. Meaning, let's say it's a $400,000 loan. If that's how big the loan is and you get 2 points, that's $8,000 in credit towards your closing costs. And depending on how big the loan is, that may cover everything, and it only makes a few bucks difference on your monthly payment. So something to keep in mind. That's what we'll look at. And understanding also that when it comes to closing costs, a lot of the fees that are involved in closing costs, that's the upfront charges that are involved in getting a mortgage, those are not fees from your lender. They're fees from the escrow officer as well, title officer, the appraiser, all these different people, and your loan officer is just estimating what their fees are. Now, if you're comparing lender fees, those can be compared apples to apples, but when it comes to comparing the total closing costs, a lender can tell you what you want to hear and then wait till the very end and say, oh, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't my fee, it was the escrow's fee that was way expensive. That's what made the closing cost so much more than what we were expecting. Basically, they can tell you what you want to hear and then surprise you at the end. So that's why we do so much work to make sure we're being very conservative when we calculate our closing costs. It's because we don't want to have any surprises at the end. So that gives you an idea. Now, I have an example here of a little breakdown. Remember, this is not a rate quote. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. I'm just walking through numbers. So, cool. In this example, it's a $500,000 loan. Sorry, $500,000 purchase price and 5% down, just to give you some context. So loan amount $475. Now, when it comes to closing costs, the only fees that are from us as a lender is Processing and underwriting, 745, 800. It's always the same, whether it's a big old massive mansion on the beach or whether it's a tiny little condo out in the middle of the desert. Those don't change. Processing and underwriting fees, very rarely can you get a discount on those. No, I don't think I've ever given a discount on those because those are corporate fees. So keep that in mind. That's not something that changes ever. Other things like start from the top here. You can sometimes get a credit or pay points to get a lower interest rate. So for example, if it's 4% and no points, we could actually put in a rebate. It's called when you get a rebate, that means that you're actually getting credit towards your closing costs. Say kids 2 points, $9,500. There you go. That goes towards paying all your closing costs. So it gives you an idea. Let's see. When it comes to termite report, this is all stuff you shouldn't have to worry about. See, appraisals. Appraisals range from 450 to about 560 for a standard appraiser. If you're doing something like it's a mansion, $1 million house plus, or it's an investment property where they're verifying the rental income for that neighborhood, that goes up to about 650. Only very rare cases will it be any higher than that, extremely rare. So just keep in mind that appraisals, these fees will actually drop down to where they're supposed to be, but an appraisal, the lender has to pick that fee, so there's not a good way to really mitigate that. Credit reports. A lot of times these are disclosed higher. For example, 150 is what usually shows up on our paperwork, but a credit report only costs you the amount of work that's done. So for example, if we run a credit report one time, it costs, about 20 bucks to run a credit report. And if we put the loan in escrow right away and there's nothing that needs to be corrected or updated, then that's all it is. But if there's something that's wrong, something we need to correct, something we need to amend, if it takes a long time and we have to run it multiple times because the first one expired, that's when it goes up. And certain fees on here can be reduced, but they cannot be increased. So that's why that's one of them. Escrow and title. So there we go. So escrow and title fees are something where you would call them. Escrow's job is to be a neutral third party. The way I usually explain this is, imagine there's two kids trading baseball cards on the schoolyard. And one kid has one card, the other has the other. They walk up, all of a sudden one kid grabs the other kid's card and runs away with both cards. To avoid that, escrow would be the third kid, stands in the middle, says, okay, you agree, you're trading this card for that card, right? You're trading this card for that? Okay, good. You give me your card. Good. Now you give me your card. Now only once both cards have gone to the middle kid will he make the switch. It's the third party who makes sure that everybody does what they're agreeing to before anybody loses their money or their house. So that's what escrow does. Title's job is to make sure that the person selling the house has the legal right to sell the house, and that when you take on owning that house, that you don't have any other kind of loans or liens or anything like that that you did not sign up for. So you don't want to buy a house and all of a sudden have two mortgages when you're only expecting one. So that's why title is so important. When it comes to recording and notary fees, this is something where people say all the time, hey, I've got a buddy who will do a notary fee for me. He'll do the notary for me for free. You have to have specific insurances and licensing to do mortgage notaries, and you need to be cleared with the title company. So it's possible, if you know somebody, that they might be able to help you save money by doing your notary for you. Let us know early in the process. That way we can get that person cleared with escrow and title and make sure that they're cool on with our lenders as well, and we can verify that their E&O, errors and omission insurance, is adequate to be able to sign. And all through here, there are different places where there are reasons why you don't want to go with just the cheapest person, and they could cause a lot of errors and delays in the actual purchase of the property. So it's something to keep in mind. We don't want you to just go with the cheapest person. We want you to go with the person who's going to take the most. Make your process as smooth and correct as possible, because one error could trigger a big cost down the line. We want to avoid that. Okay. So there's multiple chunks. So this is the first chunk we talked about so far, and that's the estimated non-reoccurring closing cost figures. That means it's only going to happen one time, one fee up front. Now, there is prepaid expenses. So if you are buying a house and you're including your taxes and your insurance as part of your mortgage payment, that means that you have an account that every month you're putting 1 month worth of your taxes in there and 1 month worth of your homeowner's insurance into this account. And then at certain times of the year, that money will automatically distribute and pay those big bills. So that way you don't have to worry about saving your money and planning for those events. So the way it works here is that you pay for your homeowner's insurance right up front, no matter what, because homeowner's insurance goes for 1 year chunk, and then that money is distributed right away to pay for that insurance. So that's one. Number two, you're for when it comes to understanding an impound account. So let's say every month you're putting money in there. If you buy your house in January and you have 6 months of taxes due in February, you don't have enough money in that account unless you prepay some of that money. So in some cases, you may need to prepay 6 months worth of taxes because you're not going to make a mortgage payment between now and when the taxes are due. Or for example, with homeowners insurance, your mortgage is going to distribute the 12 months worth of homeowners insurance before you've made 12 months payments. You'll only make 10 payments between now and when that insurance is due. So you prepay 2 months because you're going to have 10 months of payments to fill the rest of the gap. So it's kind of complex. It's kind of hard to walk through. So we walk through it on a case by every time, so that way you understand when bills are due and when your mortgage is actually funding, so you can see when those gaps are. But for right now, understand that you're putting money in there in advance. This is not a fee or a cost from your lender. You're just prepaying costs that you're going to have no matter what. Even if you bought a house all cash, you're still going to have taxes due and you're still going to have insurance due. And again, the insurance is a company that you pick 100%. We don't control it as a lender. The only thing we require is that you have enough insurance that if the house falls over, that the insurance will rebuild it. And that's what's the point of insurance if you don't have that? And then also you're going to see something in here like days of prepaid interest. You're only going to pay interest for the days in the month that you have the money. So for example, if you close on the 29th and there's only 2 more days left in the month, you don't want to pay for 30 days of interest because you only had it for those 2 days. So this is how it works, is that this number will change. The days of prepaid interest will change based on when your loan closes, and this will constantly be moving around until the final day of the loan funds, and it'll be corrected to the exact date. So prepaid interest, if you see this as a higher number, smaller number, it doesn't matter. It depends on when your loan closes. And then, yeah, so those are the prepaids. And yeah, so when you look in here, you're going to see total closing costs, which is right here. You're going to see prepaid expenses, which is right here, added up. You're going to see your down payment money, $25,000 in this case, in this example. And then that gets you to your total cash to close. So for example, if we want to reduce closing costs, we can do a couple different things. One, this is set up as a 5% down loan. One option is we change it to a 3%. If we want to get this lower, we could just go right over here, say 3%. Look at that, the cash to close dropped down. But let's say that that would affect the interest rate and your mortgage insurance in this example. So let's say we don't want to do that. Now maybe we can just increase your interest rate slightly, so that way you can get a better that way we can credit money. So like I told you earlier, 3.75, say we did that, negative 0.02. Minus 2 points, it means we're cruising it. See right there, we dropped it all the way down. Remember, your down payment, which is the minimum you come in with in this example, is 5% or $25,000. And we can see after the credit right here, you're getting credit of $9,500. That covers all the closing costs. That covers all of the prepaid expenses in this example. And that boils down to you coming in with only your monthly payment. I'm sorry, only your down payment, which is exactly where you want to be. So there are other ways to reduce closing costs and everything, but this is just an example of how we walk through and educate you on what all these moving parts are. Because if you see just this right here, it's going to freak you out because it's a lot of information and like, wait, why is this fee here? Why is this fee here? Why is this? And we want to be able to explain everything really slowly and make sure that it takes hold in your brain when we're explaining it to you. So again, if you want to work with somebody who can explain all these moving parts for you, not just tell you what you want to hear, but deliver the results at the end of a transaction that keep you happy, so that way you're happy happy before the loan is started. You're happy during escrow because you're getting lots of information, lots of updates, and lots of education. And you're happy after the loan closes because there was no lies, no baits and switch, no surprises that you weren't expecting. And yeah, that's what we do. So if you need any help with anything, give me a call. If you're working with a great realtor already and you want to refer them to me to say, hey, I'm thinking about using this guy, is he good? Share this video. Yeah, there you go. Hope you guys are having a great day. Whether you need to purchase a house or refinance a house, my name is Ryan Hoffman, Wholesale Capital Corporation. My number is 951-312-8650. And look me up on RyanHoffmanHomeLoans.com. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Look at that. One take.